Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel for this Saturday morning, afternoon or evening across the world where you may be at. And today's video is going to be another requested video, which is going to be about the levels of autism. I've got these official levels and information from the official CDC website, so I thought I would talk about it as an autistic woman and bring it to your guys' attention. I think this is an important topic that doesn't often get discussed. It's often seen as a controversial topic. It's also seen as a topic that people really shouldn't discuss because it causes a lot of controversy within the autism community and disability community, but I'm going to give it my best shot as an autistic woman. So without further ado, let's get into it. There are currently 3 levels of autism as seen in the CDC DSM, which stands for the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. Level 1 is require support, also known as Asperger's syndrome, which is where I'm placed. Level 1 in the DSM-5 is reflected as the most mild form of autism. Individuals in this level have difficulties on social interactions and social imagination. Level 1 represents Asperger's syndrome, which is no longer within the DSM or the DSM-5, which is the current edition. The symptoms that may be associated with autism level 1 includes the following: trouble conversing with others, the ability to communicate with others, struggle to understand facial expressions and emotions. Level 2, requiring substantial support. Level 2 people requiring constant support, including constant masking, refusing to accept change in routine, inability to redirect their focus from their special interest topic. Level 3, requiring very substantial support, requiring the most high level of support to manage and perform daily activities, typically has very little communication skills, may be disruptive to the most slightest of changes or routine changes. People within the level 3 bracket may have more frequent meltdowns when in contact with sensory stimuli or the sensory environment. They also have a total inability to verbally communicate. They may not be responsive to only very basic verbal and non-verbal commands, very limited response to their social environment, hyper or hypo sensitive around input, indifference, intolerant to their pain threshold, which again I am hypersensitive because I'm very sensitive to my pain threshold. I'm very aware of pain. I don't like it. I don't cope well with pain. I do get very emotional when it comes to pain, and when I feel sick, I don't deal well with being sick. I get really upset and quite angry and frustrated. Level 1 to level 3 people also have deficits in social and emotional regulation, such as failure to respond to interactions, deficits in non-verbal communication, such as abnormalities with their flexibility of eye contact, lack of facial expressions or gestures, difficulties with maintaining or starting friendships. Their severities for level 1 to 3 people can also be based on social communication impairments and restricted and repetitive patterns of behaviour. Restricted and repetitive behaviours or interests can be manifested by their interests or activities, such as stereotyped motor movements, the use of objects such as lining up toys of its children, the insistence of sameness, inflexible adherence to routines or ritualised patterns of their behaviour, highly restricted, fixated interests that are normal in intensity or abnormal length or fascination, hyper or hypo to sensory input to both their environments. Symptoms must be present in the early developmental period, so childhood. Symptoms must cause clinically significant impairments in social occupation of everyday current functioning. So, what are my thoughts on these labels as an autistic adult, I hear you ask? I think labels are different for many people across the whole autistic spectrum. Many autistic individuals are different, so we have to be careful with the way each person identifies with their level, their traits, their severity, because each person on the autistic spectrum may not identify as level 1, level 2, level 3. We have to be very careful with the medical diagnoses that they're given as well, because level 1 I believe is called childhood autism, level 2 is what's called mild autism, high functioning autism, and level 3 is what they call severe autism. So the labels can in fact do more harm than good to a lot of autistic people, but again, we do have to be very careful of how we talk around people. with labels, diagnoses. Each person on the spectrum or suspected of being on the spectrum can identify themselves, where they place themselves, where they feel they are best placed to be, or where they best identify their symptoms, their traits, their behaviours, their obsessions, their fixations, their clinically diagnosed label. So we have to be very careful. We need to make sure that we research it and understand the label. So for me, when I got diagnosed as high functioning Asperger's, I basically went online that same day, that same time, and researched everything that I needed to know about high functioning autism, Asperger's syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, or as I call it, autism spectrum condition. Because I manage my condition, it doesn't dictate to me, I control it. So basically it's a personal interpretation of how we see things. It's a different way of thinking, feeling, seeing the world, experiencing stimuli with regards to things like food and our environment. Touch, taste, sight, sound, smell are our main triggers as well. Some people use the label as a superpower. They use it as a way to campaign for change, to make awareness, which is what I decided to do with mine, because by the end of the day, I do see my autism as a superpower. I see it as a difference, a gift, a different way of processing the world, a different way of being in the world. I kind of use it as like an X-Men power. I'm kind of like, I identify with kind of being like a mutant. I'm like, I know I'm different. I know I'm neurodiverse. I know I don't communicate the same way as the everyday neurotypical person. Which neurotypical, again, for those of you that don't know, neurotypical means non-disabled, or someone who chooses not to identify as disabled. So we have to be very careful when it comes to labels medically. Also, we have to be very careful with how each person does self-identify, self-chooses to identify, whether they identify as autistic or they don't, or they identify being Asperger's or they don't, or they diagnose themselves as being completely neurotypical. So it depends on where they are on the autism spectrum in the first place, and how they choose to act, how they choose to behave, how they choose to be around other people. They may mask a lot more of their struggles, and they may mimic a lot more to socially fit in and to be socially appropriate. I've learned to mask and mimic a lot of my struggles and my behaviours, because I've learned to what is known to be as high functioning masking. I learned to adapt. I learned to function well enough to such a standard that people go, oh, Gemma, she's autistic. Nah, really? No, not really. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am. So again, each person is different, and I'm going to say this right now. Do not speak for each autistic person or the autistic community or the disability community in general, because that is where you're going to get the most trouble and the most backlash. Do not speak for everybody on the autistic spectrum. I never ever speak for everybody on the autistic spectrum, but we do all have the same kind of traits. We do have the inability with routine, the inability to change, the inability to have flexible routines, the inability to eat certain foods. We do have certain texture issues. We do have certain touch issues, sound issues. So again, everybody on the autistic spectrum does see things differently. So I hope I've taught you a little bit about what the levels of autism are. Please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.